Welcome to Sparking Success with Aaron Opalewski. Aaron brings you conversations that spark innovation, cultivate leadership skills, and pave the way for your business success. In each episode, we delve into the dynamic world of business and leadership, exploring strategies, insights, and success stories that fuel your professional journey.
Everyone, welcome to Sparking Success. Today we have Andrew Goggin, the CEO of Frontier Building, on with us. Andrew, welcome. How are you today, man?
Doing great, man. Thank you for having me here. I'm really excited for today. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to have you on too. We talked a little bit beforehand, and I'm going to give a quick bio on Andrew, but I guess I'll start with a story. Andrew and I met in RTA Syndicate. We're both founding members of that, and we've kept in touch. We've become friends, and I think in business that doesn't mean that we don't talk every day or every week or it's probably times where it's gone years have gone by we haven't talked, but we kept in touch. I think there's a mutual respect for each other and what we're doing and what we're building, and he's just someone that I hold in high regards, and I think that's an important area to start. Some of your friends, when you're out there building businesses and stuff, everyone's got a lot of stuff going on, so you may not be together all the time or talk. We live in different parts of the country, but somewhat through keeping in touch, whether it's social or text or phone or whatever it is, but it's really just through hey, we're both out there building this thing. It doesn't really matter how long it's been since we talked. We can reconnect and kind of pick right back up. So I don't know. I just think that's something that's cool to see with some of my friendships.
It's literally 5.5 years probably when I'm trying to think when the first event when we met, but it'll be almost 6 years, right, this year. So, but no, I agree with you, and it's kind of, I enjoy watching everybody like yourself, like me, how people have changed since we met from the beginning, and kind of who's still in that space and kind of still going after it. Some people, kind of change paths or, get out, but it's kind of fun to see people that really stick with it through highs and lows, and then even the ups and downs, and continue to grow through all that. It's awesome.
Well, we're gonna get into that. That's one of the things we're gonna get into. Before it gets away from us, because we'll just start going, I want to give a little backstory on Andrew, just so you guys know a little bit about him. So he joined Frontier Building in 2006 as a superintendent with a focus on managing the company's projects and running the day-to-day operations. He did that, and fast forward 18 years later, we're going to talk about that. 18 years, not a year, not 6 months, 18 years later, and he's now the CEO and co-owner of Frontier Building. Under his leadership, the company has completed numerous high-profile projects, including working for Fortune 500 companies and top national brands such as Chick-fil-A, Raising Cane's, and Whole Foods, to name a few. He has an emphasis on maintaining solid relationships and delivering stellar customer service. It's been vital to the company's success. And, I'm just going to say it for him. We're not talking to a coach here or a solo entrepreneur. Andrew has built a company that's done over $100 million in revenue annually. He has a real business that he is leading, and he has moved up through, starting in other roles outside of ownership and being in the C-suite. And I can't wait to get into that with him. Outside of work, he's got passions that include traveling and experiencing different cultures around the world. He's an avid wine lover. You're the second avid wine lover that we've had on the show. So I'll probably ask you about that. And he enjoys spending time with his wife, Nicole, their dog, Aston, and they're anxiously awaiting their little boy that's due later this year. Congrats on that, man. That's awesome. And you guys are residing in good old Miami Beach, Florida, right?
Yes, sir.
And I'm working on getting down there with the wife, so I'll keep you posted on that. So
yeah, come in the winter. You got it. Thanks for having me.
Spend the summer here. Okay. So if it's cool, you sent us over some detailed notes for the show, And I just wanted to see if you could walk us through kind of your story of moving from where you started as a superintendent and moved into like the CEO spot. Like walk us
Yeah,
through that
absolutely.
journey.
So, yeah, so I'll tell you how it all began. So I came down to Miami about 19 years ago. I met a buddy that I went to high school with. He's like, hey, you got to come work for these guys. They're young entrepreneurs, they're real estate developers. And I was like, I don't know that I want to go work for somebody. He's like, trust me, just do it. We could run, we'll run this side of the construction company. They're developers. They don't really pay attention to the construction. So I thought about it and I said, you know what do I got to lose? I'll go learn commercial construction. I was like 25 or 26 years old. So about 4 months later, after I came aboard, he's like, hey man, I got a job offer in New York. I'm out of here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I thought we were supposed to go do big things here. He's like, I'm gone. I can't turn this job down. So I was like, holy cow, what am I going to do? I guess I'll just stay. And, and then one of the owners, the founders, took me to dinner. He's like, hey man, you want his job? You could have his job. It was a higher level job. I was like, sure. So I literally, the founders were they weren't absentee, but I just learned everything on like School of Hard Knocks. There was no processes in place, no procedures. These guys never ran a business that way. And I just said, no one's kind of watching me. I'll just learn and learn and learn. And I was getting more experience at a super young age than most would get in their 40s and 50s. And I just took on everything I could. I worked, 15-hour days, 6-7 days a week, whatever it took. I wasn't, I was hardly getting paid anything. And over the years, I always just thought, I'm going to go on my own. I'm going to go on my own. And then the founders kind of did some things that weren't right in the culture and kind of ran the business too hard and weren't paying attention. And like 8 years ago, I was ready to leave. And they were like, hey man, we've kind of made some mistakes. We get it. And I had the relationships. Everybody knew me because I was kind of on the front lines. They're like, there's some problems here, but we're willing to literally give you, and me and another guy, half the company if you guys fix the company. And I was like, no, I don't want to deal with it. It's too much work. I don't like what they did. I don't really, I'm not fond of this. And the other guy convinced me. He's like, dude, do it. We don't have to put money up. They had some debt. They had debt that they had, like, pay the debt off. So I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And he's like, do it. And yeah, so I decided, I said, I'll do it. So we literally just took the company, and they were probably doing like $25 million a year at the time. We took it, we ran with it, fixed everything within like a year, 18 months, and had the thing up and running. Started doing like 30, 50, $60 million a year. And, but it was still four guys that were kind of like, everybody kind of had like, it was like the headless dragon, I always like to say. And it was kind of running without direction. It was still like, we were doing good, making a little bit of money. And then we decided to scale. I was like, I want to grow it. So what we would in construction, what happens, and I'm sure like your business, when you start performing, some of your customers just give you more work. And sometimes you don't realize, right? Like they'll just flood you, they'll just bury you with work. So like if you did one Chick-fil-A and you did better than everybody else, they'll give you 3 the next time. And in the service work, it's not like I have it on the shelf. I could just go deliver the product. I had to go hire people. So we just kept growing it and growing it and growing it. And then, but not the right structure, infrastructure, leadership. And it was probably around 60 or 70 million that we really just put our foot on the gas, got it to over $100 million. And it was just like, holy cow, we grew it too fast. Like literally put too many people in place. I remember we were just hiring whoever we could hire. And then we kind of, as of, a couple of years ago, we decided like, hey, someone needs to run the company. The other partners kind of have to be silent. And I said, hey, I want to do it. I know, I need to do it or I'm out of here. So I'm now in charge of everything. They look to me for everything. And we've kind of scaled back a little bit, just under 100 million to kind of grow back the right way. I think I saw you made a post a couple months ago. You said everyone's chasing revenue, and you're like that. Who cares about revenue? It's about bottom line. And the same thing. We started focusing on bottom line and what we're really, really good at, and stopped caring about, what the top line looks like. And our whole business has changed as of, call it a year and almost 2 years ago. And it's evolved to a little bit less revenue, more bottom line with less people. So the systems, process, culture, better brands, better service, really for focusing on the customer, and just driving it that way. And so that's really been kind of the journey right now. And obviously, in all that, there's so many different ups and downs, stories of, what happened along the way. But so present day, we're, like I said, building for Whole Foods, Chick-fil-A, Raising Cane's, probably just be under 100 million this year. And we'll see next year if we could, kind of even want to get over that hump. It's not something that I care as much about doing now as I did. It's more about, hey, what's the foundation look like? Who can we add to our team to kind of make sure that when we do it that way, we're still the best, and our clients look at us that way.
Yeah, I read in the notes that you gave us, you mentioned like kind of instead of scaling it out with the revenue in mind, doing it more from the bottom up approach on like what's profitable, what's going to like be good for the client, I think is actually where it started, and like make those more the premises. And it's almost like you can chase revenue or you can try and do it the right way. And I think that we both probably feel like the best way to have sustainable revenue and growth is to just do it the right way, even if that takes a little bit longer.
Yeah. And I think when you do it that way, even for me, it makes you question, are you in it for the long term? Right? Like, even if it takes a long time, are you around for the long term, or are you just for next year? And then when you make decisions based on long term, so if I don't hit 100 million next year or whatever the number is, I don't care. But as long as I hit the other goals, like the foundation pieces, making sure that every customer or client, I'm doing it for them, the right reasons. And it happens when you do it that way, it actually happens organically and actually even better and you're more fulfilled that way, and more enjoyment, and the culture kind of goes with it, and people see the difference in the company. And the other thing which we did, which really was really a game changer, I was at a meeting with one of our clients about a year and a half ago, and they were telling us, they said, hey, we have a problem. All of our stores now take 230 something days to build. And they're like, that's too long. And I just listened to that, and I just said, I know I could solve their problem. So we went from like 230 days to 150 to 180 to recently 100 days build time. So we literally set the record. So what we're doing now is just like listening and solving the problems, and then like the kind of the growth comes from there, right? Like it's organically. I don't even need to sell the work. You know what I mean? Like, so when you start solving and listening to the problems, you don't have to quote unquote sell. Like, I'm not calling people begging for work saying, I need this job, I need to get this. And I think I put in the notes too, we're turning down more work that way, because if I can't solve your problem, right, that we don't have a need for each other, instead of just saying, hey, we just need to get a job or something on our books to fulfill something, like a sales guy. We don't operate like that, if that makes sense.
Sure. Well, what I heard you say, and maybe it's just me kind of hearing what I want to hear, but like what I know has been true for me personally, because like you want a business that provides a great service. And it's painful when that kind of gets away from you, or you have pockets that you're always going to have issues, but when things aren't going the way where that they should be, like at the quality standard that you want, it's a painful thing as the leader, as the entrepreneur, as anyone higher up in the business, hopefully, but as you running the business, like you feel that. And so I would rather focus on listening to the customer, figuring out if we can provide the right solution, doing that, and then letting the growth kind of evolve from that compared to try and push the growth and figure everything out and kind of let things slip through the cracks, like along with winning more projects. If the is that I kind of heard that in what you said.
Yeah, and I think it goes hand in hand. Like my business development guy who talks to a lot of potential customers, he'll say, "Hey, I got some other brand, Fresh Market or Aldi," and I'll ask them. I'll say, "Well, do they have a need?" And he'll be like, "What do you
Yeah,
mean? Well, what's their problem? Like, why would they need us to help them?" And I'm like, and he's like, "Well, they have like 4 or 5 other people they're talking to." I'm like, "Well, then they don't need us. If they have other people that they're happy with, and they're a competitive, they're a low, whether it's a low bid or we're not going to be a good fit because all I care about is, hey, can I solve their problems?
that's it.
Because I won't, you can't grow, or you'll just fall into a world of like being like everybody else. And as the people that have the problems, I feel like we could help service so much better, and our teams are so much more engaged than just having to chase sales or chase, a job, and maybe kind of veering off who we really are, right? To kind of mold into somebody else's expectation of us.
Yeah. Well, and you just what you said with that example, it's like, man, like if we can't, like, yeah, we could win the project, but if we win it at this cost, we can't really deliver the white glove service that we want to deliver, and then it's just diluting what we're able to do or what we want to do. Like, let's not do that. But let's be okay with not getting the project if we can't get the project at where we feel like we can deliver our standards. Like that's just like, but you got to be okay with not winning the project, man. Like, so, man, that, that's good. Let me
Yeah.
ask you this. You mentioned, because I preach this a lot, and I really think it's how our companies are designed, but you I couldn't agree more. You said you don't have to be the founder to end up being like entrepreneurial within the business. I'm paraphrasing, it's not exactly what you said, but like you just walked us through your story of that. Could you expand on that anymore, on like your thoughts on that? Because I couldn't agree more. And we've designed out everything we're doing with the premise of like, look, like the goal would be at some point we'll take some people that are entrepreneurial in our business, and they might earn an entrepreneurial opportunity. And that's, I hear that all over your story. And then you mentioned that. So I'd love to hear you
Yeah.
expand on that.
Yeah. I think for me, I wasn't even expecting that to happen. I always thought of myself as, oh, I want to start my own or have my own. But I think that, like, you probably know, like you could go buy another company or jump on with some other guys, and you could save so much time, so much money, so many headaches, instead of just worrying if you have a founder's title, and you can even get to the journey faster. Like I saw something here that I saw a business that nobody was paying any attention to. And I just said, this thing is going to just, these guys were not leaders. They had no business running the construction business. And I just said, I'm going to learn and either start my own or take this over. And it wasn't my money. So I was kind of getting paid. So now that I look back at it, I say, well, why do you need to start your own company? To say you started your own company? Like, is that to put on whether it's your Instagram profile that you're a founder? No, right? Like seriously, like if you're a young guy out there and you could align with people, like I want to give more people the opportunities that I had and help them because it will fast forward their career. Some people
That's right.
to start a company now, like even I thought about it, like, hey, maybe I have 4 partners now, or there's 4 of us. Maybe maybe I'll just go on my own right now. And I'll say, well, how long would that take me even now? Why do that? Like I could get to, with people and partners and a team, you should be able to get to the journey a lot faster. If you
Yeah,
understand, if you really truly understand, you have to kind of dive into that, for anybody listening, right? Like aligning yourself with people that have other traits that you don't have, even if they're the founder, who cares? Like
yeah,
you have to be humble with that. Like I don't care that I'm not the founder here, but I care that I'm the guy driving it right now. Like this is what I love to do. Like I wouldn't want to be the backseat guy, but if I was and that was what I was good at, great. I want to be me. You know what I mean?
sure. And then you get into just like the pure like value, like let's like we don't want to talk specific numbers here, but let's just talk like valuation style stuff. Like, well, when you got a smaller piece of a bigger pie and there's more scale, track record, customer base, all this stuff, your um just the financial decision of that is the right decision. Like it's way um more advantageous, not that you guys are looking to sell, right? But if you were looking at sell or they're putting a valuation on the business, it's going to be valued much higher than if you have 100% of something that's even, one fourth the size, or you're starting over, right? I mean, just there's huge economies of scale for the company and then individually for the owner in that instance when they just look at what their chunk of the valuation would be.
And also to that point, with partners, it's exactly it. We're not looking to sell today, but I'm looking to build it like we're going to either ESOP it or sell it eventually, which will create the valuation higher. Instead of if I'm on my own, guess what? I'm doing everything myself, right? I'm the maybe the bookkeeper, the this guy, the that guy, and there's no value to that. So for me now, I'm like, all right, 5 years, it's going to be ready to kind of put on the market, whether we do anything with it or not. Who knows? But it's got to be run like that and built like that for just to last forever,
Correct.
and not just hey, it's Andrew Goggin Construction, and without Andrew, that's there's no company there.
Yeah, and that's I mean, I don't know your partners, right? But also when you have partners, like they might not be as skilled at running the business day to day. That might not be their thing, but there's things that they do bring to the table that help the business, right? When it's just you only got your unique skill set. You got four unique skill sets, and then you got the whole team, behind that too. But there's power in that. I know when we first met in our businesses, we had one business and I was the only equity partner. And one of the main things that I've taken from Arate on, you've heard this, like create a vision that's big enough for everyone to fit inside of it. Well, we put that into play with what we built here, and sit here today. We have 19 equity partners. There's different partners in these different businesses, but they're all on one roll-up strategy as it relates to EBITDA. Not going to get too technical with operating agreements and all that stuff, but it's all dialed in, and we've got good guidance on that from someone that sold in our industry for about 150 million out the door. So I'm grateful to have that guidance. But man, like with those equity partners, they all bring unique skill sets to the table that I don't have. And that's cool. That's great. For like part of that's just fun, to be learning new things and have other people that bring a different energy or are able to just do things that you couldn't bring into business that create other opportunities for other people inside of the business that wouldn't be there if you didn't do those things. So that's, I think, another benefit to having, partners is like you get these other skill sets, hopefully. Otherwise, they might not be good partnerships.
Yeah, I mean, my one has practically been a mentor, and his business acumen and the guidance, like, is just like without it, I would be like I wouldn't have learned everything I've learned, and to this day, like, I mean, he's a very successful guy. And I like seriously, he's like a mentor like Andy or Ed is in Arte, but you need that. I think having that, especially when you get to, when you get knocked on the ground, to be able to go to somebody and say, man, I just got, all right, what are we going to do? And I
Yeah.
think I even put this in my notes. He's one of the guys that told me when I scaled too fast, he's like, you're either going to quit because you got, you're just, disappointed in yourself, or you're going to take the lessons learned and it will literally springboard you into the next your next phase of who you're going to be. And he goes, that's how people build wealth, is when they really get knocked down. He's like, well, what you do and how you decide to handle the situation we're in, it's going to be up to you. I'll never forget that advice, because he's not really an operator in a sense. And he looked to me to kind of like really put the things in place where we are today. And I was just like, wow, this is an unbelievable challenge, because I know he can't help me with that. But he kind of just said, like, look at it like this. And what are you going to do with it? And I think, like you said, with partners and with people, it's invaluable. And you should be able to do a lot more. To your point, you have 19 equity partners, which is amazing. Like, if you should be able to do it a lot more, and be humble enough to see that, hey, we should be able to get to whatever our goals are, reach anything, if you use it properly. Like, I think some people are insecure about that, and they shouldn't be.
Yeah. And I mean, absolutely. I mean, first off, that is amazing advice, from your mentor and partner, lines up well. I'm probably going to have to use that as a story in one of our weekly meetings, because one of our core values is conquering adversity is the recipe to success. And that's what I hear in that mentorship. Like, and it's just been true for us. Like, our biggest successes have come from learning from our failures, but not just like, oh yeah, we learned from that, let's move on. Like, no, we learned from that. How are we going to use it as a tool to get better? How are we going to adjust our service, or create a new service line, or learn how to say no to something, or not yet, or go back and handle a situation with a client that we didn't handle right, or hey, this is working, we should pour more resources here, than like dilute them to other areas that aren't. Like, you learn from these mistakes, and it helps take you to that next gear.
There's a guy, I don't know if you've ever heard of the guy Keith Cunningham, very successful. I have to send you the information on him. He calls it, he says, if you had all the money from all the mistakes you've ever made, how wealthy would you be? And you probably know business, you'd be like, oh shoot, I'd be retired already. It's who knows, right? And he calls it the dumb tax. Like, he really is a great teacher. And to your point, if you take all those lessons that you've learned and do something with them, I tell to our guys all the time, if like we make the same mistakes twice, shame on us, right? Because we know better. And if we just learn from all that, it's amazing what happens when one of our core values is endless improvement. So like we don't want to make these mistakes twice. It's okay if we make mistakes, we're gonna miss, but we can't repeat the same things. And as to your point, like, say no to things, do the right. It's compounding.
I wanted to go back. So we're talking about this like revenue thing, and you mentioned a post that I had done, and this is just something that I think was hard for me, because I was so focused on growing the revenue, and I still am. You want to grow your revenue, you absolutely do, but how you grow the revenue, but like you said, from the ground up. But it's like I had to look at stuff, and it's like, man, like I'm in some of these staffing groups, right? And I think what we all know about these groups is, everyone's competitive. And so people will throw out numbers and all this kind of stuff. And it's easy to throw out a number and not have to back it up and all these different things, right? But I started going to these staffing meetings, and there's some of these staffing businesses that were doing 100 million in revenue. When you learned more about the business, and this is operational in staffing, but they're only running about a 15%, 14, 13% gross profit on that revenue. The rest is kind of pass-through income. And so as I learned more about that and like looked where we were at, and then on some of these projects that didn't work out, we took some programs that we were doing revenue $4, $5, $6 million on in a year, and we flipped the service model that we did with them, and we might have cut some of those to, like, I could think of 2 million in revenue, let's say. So we cut it by 2/3, but it switched from where we were doing pass-throughs to that was 100% gross profit business. And so we got to keep way more of that money. Is the end story. like on that project. Didn't look as
Wow.
good on the revenue line. But so, you know, now I'm like, you think about some of those combos and it's like, okay, like some of these guys going to these meetings with and they're at 100 million or whatever they're at, and they're running a 14% GP. Well, we're walking in the room and we're not at 100 million overall yet. I would like, it's still a goal of mine too, but shoot, if we're running blended 54% gross profit in an industry that it's like best practice to do 30, like like what's happening in those meetings is those guys are asking us a bunch of questions, because at the end of the day, your gross profit's what you got to do business, and we're doing more business than these companies that are on revenue, on their revenue line and staffing, are doing 100, 125 million. We're doing more business than them because our GP is 3 times the amount of theirs. So,
Wow,
but
that's
that's like an
crazy.
ego thing, right? Like I had to be okay. It's like, well, we're going to take this project from a $6 million client to 2. Yeah. But when the GP on that $6 million client was, I don't know, 250,000, 300, like it wasn't a high amount. Or I'm sorry, if it was, let's say on a 6 million, 600,000 would be 10%. So let's say we were getting maybe $1 million in gross profit, and we weren't getting it done for the client. Like their retention wasn't good, right? So we switched the model. We actually doubled the GP, but the revenue doesn't go up, right? It gets cut in a third. But we do a good job for the client. Like it works for the client. Like they're actually happy. Their retention's going up. They expand us, like you said. They expect, like, hey, can you do this across the country for us? Instead of just like we micro project that for 3 months. So it
Yeah.
wasn't too, before it became 2 million, it was like a couple 100,000. Well, we micro project it for 3 months. It works. And then they're like, hey, can you do this across the country for us in a bunch more places? Yeah. And next thing you know, it explodes. And, you know, we've got multiple programs like that that have cut our revenue. But it's why, you know, when we first met in Arete, like our business was doing some good things, but our gross profit production has almost tripled from when we first met
Wow,
5 years ago.
that's
Um,
crazy.
and it's from getting those programs right for clients.
There's
So
I'll tell you this quick story. I interviewed someone about 2 months ago, and he's working for this big company. They're in all the publications, you know, this company, this big tower down here, this big project here, you name it, very up and coming. The articles about the CEO. I think they do about $1 billion a year. So I interviewed this guy, go meet him for dinner. Not the CEO. He's running this job. It's a $400 million construction job, 430 million or something. And I wanted to see how much he knew. So I just said, hey, just curious, what will you guys make on that project? How much money will you make? Because I don't know the big construction world, you know,
sure.
but a lot of people are enamored by big, you know, big, big, big. He says, we'll probably make, he goes, we took, it was a bigger project for us. We took it on the cheap. We took it for 2% net. Okay. Just think, hold on, gets better. So 2% net over 3 years. It's just a 3-year job. Okay.
Well, that's probably if everything goes right.
Okay. So now that 3-year job, he said, turned into 6 years.
Oh boy.
And he's like, and he goes, and we have a couple other projects that we probably took a little too cheap too. Now, I know what he was trying to tell me is, hey, we got some problems on our hand. Because now just think about that. Now, he was just trying to tell me that, and he, as soon as he was telling me that, you know, a half hour later, he was so kind of, he wasn't full of himself, but he's like, I'm doing a $400 million project. And I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, but you guys aren't making it, you know, you're doing it for free for a billionaire up in Palm, like literally, he was a billionaire guy. And I'm like, and I used to think like, wow. And I started talking to more people doing bigger jobs, and they're literally, I talked to another guy, they did 1 million square foot Amazon distribution center, like 3%. And I'm like, and he's like, yeah, he goes, I can't believe the company does these things so cheap. And he's like, it's two guys, they're still, and I'm like to your point, like I used to think like you got to get bigger, bigger, bigger. And he like, there's no, you have to be comfortable to say, you know what, I want to do exactly to your point. I'm like, wow, I'm happy with, if people saw some of the things that I'm doing, they would be like, wow, it's less risk, right? More controllable, less things. It's just, and I'm like, I'm comfortable. And if I get there, I'm not going to chase the top line because that's what happens. You can get into that world, and before you know it, you're doing work for nothing, just to
Mm-hmm.
say, and then you created this wheel, this big machine that you have to keep feeding, and then you're not making the decisions. You can't make the decisions because you need to keep filling it and filling it because you're so big now. And I think that's
Well,
a vicious cycle, right?
yeah, because you got to also put the infrastructure in place to fulfill that project. Then you're probably not even going down the like part of that issue would be, you know, that contract that you sign, service agreement, whatever it is in your industry. Well, the bigger the company is that you're doing that for, the more sophisticated their legal team is to probably beat up your legal team on stuff that happens within the project. So if that project that goes longer or whatever, like there's probably other hidden costs in there that you're not accounting for. So you got time working against you on that, and then you're probably also getting dinged on some other stuff, or more likely to. I don't. In our world, we definitely like we're with the bigger clients. Like we want to like. There's great ways to work with people, but just because the client is bigger, or just because the project is bigger, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be better. Like, and then the finer points in these agreements and stuff can really bite you, or there could be some second or third order consequences to structuring it or just signing off on the contract if you don't understand what some of the teeth is in there.
Oh, absolutely. I know stories of, these big developers that, have just taken, I was interviewed another guy. There's a big restaurant, very high end, Miami type restaurant. We looked at the job a little bit and we kind of just said, it's not really our thing. And I've talking to this kid. I was like, how'd the job go? And he goes, we're just trying to get through it. I go, will you make any money? He goes, we're just trying to get through it at this point. So again, situation, right? They take a job, they think it's a sexy thing, they want to have it on their resume, and they get into a contract with an owner, they'll end up probably losing money on the job. And again, these big contracts, yeah, they have liquidated damages clause, penalties clause, carry interest carry clause. I mean, forget it. Like you could literally one mistake, one bad contract, and you're for what? For a pretty picture on your website, right?
Yeah, next thing you know, you're upside down. So
And
hopefully,
you lose, and you wrote them a check to do the job.
yeah, yeah, man. Well, I could talk about this kind of stuff all day because I think like this is the stuff that you don't hear about as much on these podcasts. And if someone's serious about growing a business, whether it's their own business or they're entrepreneurial inside the business, like this is stuff that's actually like these are real things that happen in growing a business that you should think about or learn about. And if you can learn from other people's experiences on them, it saves you a ton of time.
I
So
agree.
uh, I hope people listen to this and realize, like, even if it's maybe it applies to them right now, if they're growing their business at some point, these things are going to apply to them, right? And this is like invaluable information. So if you're like, oh, this doesn't apply to me right now, we'll save it for later if you want to keep growing
Yeah.
because this is good info. I wanted to pivot real quick because you're at a really cool time in life with a baby on the way. And I know you got a lot going on with work. And I have two little girls and my wife, Anna, and it's just an amazing part of life, right? And, it's interesting because when we met, I've been married for a couple of years, but I had just had my daughter. And so kind of just getting into that phase of life. And I wasn't, I had to feel that out on how I was going to do that. I had some time to do that as I got married to figure out like, how am I going to go from like before when I was single, it's like I'll just work 16 to 20 hours a day. Like probably not sleep enough, have too many energy drinks. Um, I'd get my workouts in, go party on the weekends and then get right back to it. Like we'd go out on a Saturday night, and we'd work 6 days a week. Like we worked a lot, we partied. Like life changes though when you get married, and then like when you have kids, life changes again. And it's just been a huge blessing on my life in so many ways. I'm excited for you, and I just want to hear more about how you do that. I see some of the stuff. Looks like you guys get to experience some great travel, and I'd love to hear about the wine, and all that. So walk me through that. Like, how do you do that?
It's interesting. When I met my wife, I actually met her in the building that I moved. I moved into a building. I wanted to move into this building in Miami Beach. I said, I want to get around people that are probably doing a little bit better than me. It was probably right at Arte, right before it. I think it was like literally right when we got into Arte. I was like, I got to move into this building. I want to meet somebody. I want to meet people that are doing things at a bigger level. It was a nicer building. It was like it's a big step up for me. So when I met my wife and we started dating, she's like, and I didn't travel at the time. I didn't hardly do anything. I was working. And she's like, I travel and you got to have a passport and you got to travel. And I was like, wow, this is going to be a big change for me. So I started trying it out, testing it out. And it's interesting when you travel, and I don't know if you ever noticed this, but you learn in your business, like what's the problem is. Like if you go away and the department falls apart or a team falls apart and it becomes a stress while you travel, you're like, all right, I got to go fix that when I get back. You know what I mean? Like, all right. And then you go away again. All right, what falls apart this time? And as the years have progressed, I noticed the last few times I traveled, I said, hey, there's a couple things, but it's not like it used to be a couple of years ago. So I think it's healthy to go away, because like when we were just talking, you want a business that, that doesn't have to rely on us for every single decision. And I've learned that traveling or kind of having the life outside of work, it kind of makes you want to fix that so you don't have to be stressed out at home with your, because like when I have, I'm trying to think in January when our son is due, hey, what's going to fall apart? Like, what can I put in place now? Or like, hey, what do I need to put in place if it takes a year to kind of have that? Because I don't want to be attached to the business. And I don't want to be stressed out all the time at home. Like I got to be in my office because I don't think that's healthy. So it's been kind of cool to see because now I went away this year and I was just like, wow, I checked in on just in my email just because it's naturally, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And now I want to see like even better. There's a couple departments I need to work on and put a couple people in place for maybe the next 5 years to see but I think some of that stuff, having all that stuff in your life kind of, it all has to work. So if your business needs you so much, there's something wrong, right? Like I don't want to make every decision. I used to think I do, but I don't want to. I want to empower people and I want to make sure I have the right people to do that. Because, I want both sides of life. I don't, I think that's kind of the cool part to see if you can do it all, right?
Yeah. Well, I know. I mean, man, that's an interesting take. Like, I'm fortunate in what we do is I can do it. I think it's by no means would I suggest that, you're not suggesting this either, but like, the leader that just like takes off and is never around, like if you're going to operate the business, you need to operate the business and be there. But you also want people running departments that are capable of running departments or, in my case, like with the 7 businesses, well, we have, I don't run all 7 businesses. I'm CEO at one business. And then we have operators in the other ones. And I'll provide guidance to them, but it's their job to run the businesses day to day. If I was trying to run all 7, it would absolutely fail. Everything would fall apart. So that's first some recognition to those people, right? But it's an ongoing thing. Like as you're growing, I definitely being able to work from anywhere, and I still have a tough time being away. I like to be involved, and I don't feel guilty when I leave because I know how much I still work. And I think our people know that too. You know, at least the ones that are close to me, and I think probably a majority of people, because they see me here so much, like I'm fully involved in what we're doing. Um, that's a really good point, that it provides this opportunity to expose some cracks that need to be, uh, plugged, or things that need to be tweaked to improve the business, because that's what we should. You said you have that core value, like uh, say endless improvement. Is
Yeah.
that what you said? Yeah, we have be humble, crave improvement. Like the premise of these is we should always be improving. And so, as the CEO or leader, or you're running a part of the business, it's not like, oh, this is good enough. Like, we should always be looking for ways to improve. So that's another way you can kind of do that. I think that's interesting. I don't know if you found this, but like for me, doing some, because I've never been on a vacation before I was 30, and then I met my wife, and when we got married, we started to do some travel. My first um, big trip was going on like our honeymoon. And then we started doing a company trip and some stuff as well. But like, we started to spend more time in California. Now we have a place in California, so we're out there, about 30 days a year. We got to get down to Florida here this spring.
Yeah.
But I find when I travel, or at one point we had 9 offices across the country. We consolidated and went centralized and do a lot of that. We do more work across the country now, but we have one centralized building in Michigan now. And then we still have people that work remote, in other parts of the country. But I've just found, whether it was travel for work or travel, with my wife, or going to events, it just like opens your mind to more things, like see the world in a different way. And it's just helped me kind of expand what's possible. Or it's like, hey, like in these bubbles or in what we do, okay, I got it. But there's so much more opportunity out there. There's so much more to learn. There's so much, like, it just gets me in a creative space, I think, somewhat. So I never
Yeah.
thought it would do that, but I think it like has done that for me.
Yeah. I agree 100%. I was in one of the trips I went with my wife. We went to a safari in South Africa and had high expectations, but just because it was exciting. But the people there at the hotel, I couldn't believe the service. It was nothing like I'd ever imagined. You only saw one person, maybe 2 people. And they told me, they said, there's 7 people behind the scenes for every one guest here. And I was just like, wow. I said, literally, like you just said, like it opened my mind up to service in a whole nother way, to say, hey, are we servicing our customers like this, right? Like these people, you don't even see them. They know everything, every detail. And I'm like, wow, like, but absolutely, it opens your mind up so much. The people you meet, my wife too is like, hey, let's go meet these people. You meet these people, like you find that you meet a lot of other people that are doing a lot of things like you. And it's important, I think, to open your mind, because you don't realize what's out there and what other people are doing. And sometimes it gives you so much perspective, like, holy cow. I went with one of the guys in our team. I went with Adam. He took me, we went to Croatia, and it was his birthday, and he rented a yacht. And when we were out there, I saw all these other yachts, and we were talking, and I couldn't believe the wealth that's out there in the world. It's mind blowing what some people have built. And we were discussing, we're like, we pulled up to this marina, and there was one of the most expensive yachts in the world. There's a sailboat. It's like 375 feet, like literally. It was just, if you saw it, you would blow your mind. And one guy did that in business, just from business. And it just made me think, like, holy cow, like business could do that. And, obviously he used the boat, he sailed, so he wasn't stuck behind his computer, right? And it's unbelievable what you could do, but just getting out there, seeing it, puts your mind in a whole nother place. And I came back, I'm like, man, I got to do so many other things here. And you go there with such, it makes you so humble in a healthy way, and gets you so fired up to get back. And we got to fix this, we got to do this. and I think it's been great. I learned to love it now, to travel and getting out there.
That's cool. Thanks for sharing. Adam's a good guy. I actually,
Yeah.
I didn't stay in Arte a year or two. I was focused on trying to implement some of the things that we learned, and but I've come back in, and that's probably another whole conversation on like seasons for that type of stuff, right? Versus like executing. But I got to meet Adam at a dinner that we ended up sitting at the same table for one of the dinners that you paid for to go be with Andy and Ed.
Yeah.
And it was cool. So I haven't talked to him like too much, but we had fun that night at dinner. I got to know him a little bit, and we follow each other on social and stuff. So he's a cool guy. It's cool to hear a story about how he started that business and just like from the ground up, like just like got involved in that industry, like similar, like I believe he worked for a company first and just kind of like went there on a whim and got going, and like telling me how like all I remember about it is like he's fearless, like to pick up the phone and start calling people, and
Yeah.
that's what's
and
required.
it's unbelievable what he's built too. It's amazing to see him. We've become, again, at Arte, same thing, became close friends, and our wives, close too. So it's like you said, just getting out there and meeting people. I think it's super healthy.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for taking, about an hour, with us today. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Hopefully we can do this again. And I'll let you know when we're coming down to Florida.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And I hope, like you said, if anybody, people get some value out of it, because I think there's a lot of things that hopefully we could give to people, and that they don't have to make the same mistakes, to help grow their business, or, learn. So
There's great nuggets that you left in there today. And I mean, I know I'll go back and listen to it, and, I heard things like, man, like that's good. Like I could implement that. Like, and just like we're talking about with the travel, like we should always
yeah,
be looking for those little nuggets to try and do that. So, I have no doubt that this will be helpful for people. Thank you,
great,
man. So
awesome.
everyone, thanks for listening. Andrew, they can find you on Instagram, LinkedIn. Where are you at?
Yeah, it's just Instagram and LinkedIn, I think is, and I'm not even a social guy, but I think it's Andrew Goggin is just my Instagram.
Got it.
Nothing, same thing with LinkedIn.
Okay. Well, he's out there. He's, less posted on social, more running an actual business that's doing right around $100 million a
Yeah.
year. So he's got stuff going on. Dude, it was great talking to you. Thanks for coming on. Hope everyone has a great day, and thanks for listening.